Hello everyone. Today I'm going to introduce assignment 3, news article sentiment analysis. We are from group 4. YouTube link will be provided after completion of this recording, and then SharePoint site link is here in the links section. First we'll be discussing our goals and introducing our team members, also the tools we used, and then we will be discussing the web scraping and sentiment analysis parts. And showing the visualization links. In the end, we incorporated the reference links in the slides. Our goal is to fetch the data from the online source outlets and perform the web scraping and sentiment analysis, and finally displaying the results in Power BI. I'm Monika Alapati, acting as a business analyst. Emeka Thompson, programmer, is going to do the web scraping part. Attilla Acar is managing the database connectivity and sentiment analysis. Nikita is visual designer. Tools we used are Python, NLTK, Vado Sentiment, Jupyter Notebook, MongoDB, Power BI. Sentiment analysis is a natural language process to determine the polarity within the text. It can be positive, negative, or neutral. NLTK, it performs the manipulations and analysis effectively. Vado sentiment is a model to analyze the polarity as well as the intensity of the emotions. It relies on sentiment score. We selected Canadian politics, and then our news outlets are CBC News, The Star, Toronto Sun, CTV News, Global News. And the web scraping part will be explained by Emeka Thompson.
Thanks, Monika. Our focus for this analysis is on Canada politics, and the first step is to get recent news from reliable news outlets. We'll be scraping feeds from CBC News, The Star, Toronto Sun, CTV News, and Global News. My name is Emeka, and I'll be presenting the codes we use for web scraping. In our web scraping code, we import libraries Beautiful Soup, Feed Parser for passing the article in the RSS feeds, stopwords to filter stopwords from the text we are going to be processing, and pandas for our data frame. Next, we assign names to the URLs, we create columns, and we assign stop for the stopword library, and then we define a function, clean text. Next, we create our pandas data frame, and then we pass our URL to the feed parser, and then we iterate each record in the feed. The next step is our data cleaning step. Here, we delete all punctuations from the summary column in the data frame. We ensure that all words are in lowercase. We delete all stopwords, and then we ensure that the summary column have feeds that are greater than 3 words. I will demonstrate our web scraping code. First step is to import libraries, and then we do our assignments and create our function. Here we use a for loop for iteration, and we've added 2 new columns, links and source, for easy identification. So I'll run this column, and here we have our column title, summary, publishing date, link, and source. We repeat the same for the other news outlets. Notice how we have empty cells, uppercase letters, stopwords, and punctuations in our summary column. The next step is to clean the data. In this data cleaning step, we are going to remove punctuations, set our columns to lowercase, delete stopwords, and we will ensure that each news feed in the column has a minimum of 3 words. Now notice they no longer start with uppercase. We can't find stopwords, nor punctuations, and there are no empty columns. Finally, it is important that we merge these data frames into one data frame using this code. Next, we want to save our data frame to CSV. After saving, we want to append to our existing CSV using this code. And this is how our final data frame looks like in CSV. We have the title, summary, publishing date, links, and news source. After the web scraping comes the sentimental analysis, and Atilla is going to take it from here. Thank you.
Thank you, Emeka. Hi everyone, this is Atilla and I'm the programmer and DBA for this project. Today I will go through the sentiment analysis. As Emeka mentioned, now we have the description data frame. Let's check this data one more time. So we have the link and source. To do sentiment analysis, I imported pandas to convert the list to data frame, and I imported Mongo client. I imported sentiment intensity analyzer from Vader Sentiment. So first of all, I set it sentiment intensity analyzer as analyzer. Let's run this. So over here, basically we have the empty list, and for description data frame, summary field, we run the polarity scores for each row using analyzer and set it as PS. Then we insert all the PS into our list. Let's run it. So now we're gonna convert this list to data frame called DF sentiments. Now, as you can see, we have all polarity scores in here for each row. So now, so far we have the DF description and DF sentiments data frames. So we would like to join them by using pandas concatenation feature, and we call this data frame as DF join. So the description and the DF sentiments. Meanwhile, we reset index. So let's run this. So as you can see, now we have the polarity scores in our DF join data frame. After that, we created two more fields, the one called sentiment based on the compound score. If the score is greater than 0.01, we set it as positive. If the score is less than or equal to minus 0.01, we set it as negative, and the rest we set it as neutral. And the second field called words based on the summary, we created this field for Power BI purposes. Basically, we're gonna calculate what are the most common words in our data frame. So let's run then and see the DF join. So we have the sentiment and the words fields in our DF join data frame. Then let's connect to our Mongo client DB and check if we have anything in here. As you can see, we have nothing in here now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna create a database called test. Then under test, you're gonna create a collection called sentiment data. Then basically we're gonna convert our data into the dictionary format because MongoDB accepts data in JSON format. So then we're gonna insert our data into our MongoDB. So let's run this and then check. We will be seeing STB sentiment data collection, and we have all the information in here: title, summary, publishing, source, polarity scores, sentiment value, and the words in array format. And the last thing I would like to mention is to explain how Power BI connected to our MongoDB. So basically, first of all, we enable the BI connector in MongoDB. Then we install a MongoDB ODBC driver. Then we enter all the necessary information in here and define the data source name as BI connector. And when you click the test button, we were able to see the test database. Then in Power BI, when you click the get data, we choose the ODBC. Then we choose BI connector data source name. When you click the OK, we were able to see the our data in Power BI. So now Nikita is going to present you our findings in Power BI. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Attila. Now it's time to go over the visualization. To complete it, I made use of the Microsoft Power BI tool, connecting it to MongoDB to get data. Most of it was useful from the get-go, and I only needed to change field types to suit the charts I was planning to use. First, I needed to change the data type from categorical strings into a continuous field of date type. Since different sources have different date formats, I need to unify them, and for that I have split date and time into separate columns, then combining them into one with a unified format. Then I added another custom column that would have just the month and day as categorical values to represent the average opinions for that specific day. After that, I ended up with a table with categorical and continuous data variables, along with sentiments for each article and a table with buzzwords collected from said article. Here you can see that the table with articles called sentiment data and sentiment data words contains the buzzword. In the dashboard itself, we can see this connection and we can see the custom columns I added. The dashboard ended up being separated into two pages, Overview and Details. The Overview page contains the broad view on the collected data, with the statistics on sources and articles right there on top left. Compound polarization of the articles, list of sources of buzzwords, and of course a list of articles themselves. This overview page can be further filtered by choosing specific sources for specific words. For example, here we can see that CBC News write much more about Justin Trudeau than other media. If you click on Trudeau, for example, you can see that CBC News has 8 articles for that, for Minister 13, Prime 9, and Justin right here 7, while others get less. When articles have positive connotation, like for example here 0.22% of the overall versus 0.04% of the overall, they call him by his name, Justin or Trudeau. While when having a negative connotation, they used to call him by his formal position, like for example Minister, you get more negative, and Prime, you get also more negative than, for example, Justin. Articles containing the word federal, for example here, and government, for example here, also have more negative connotation than Trudeau himself. This can indicate that Canadian press tends to depersonalize the government when criticizing it, depersonalize the government when criticizing it, while it praises Trudeau personally. Coming from a Russian perspective, this is not a good sign. Going over the sources, we can see that in the word cloud that in CBC News, they are mostly concerned with politics, talking about Trudeau, government, and indigenous people. CTV News cares about the outside world, talking about Australia, USA, and Britain, and mostly in negative terms. Global News is a mixed bag of politics, drugs, and COVID. The Star is pretty much the same as Global News, except more positive. And finally, Toronto Sun concerned mostly with local news about COVID, police, sports, and scandals. This brings us to the details page. On this page, we can see each of the sources independently, arranged from most positive being the Star to most negative being CTV News. On the top left, we have the change in opinions of all these sources over time, and on the top right, we have the representation of average polarization of each source. By clicking on any of the sources, we can highlight its column and line on the chart. And by clicking on the line, we can see the presentation of average opinions over each day. Clicking on the slices in pie charts, for example like this, we can see how much of the compound polarization was influenced by separate buzzwords and by number of articles. For example, for CBC News there are twice as many positive articles than negative ones, but due to positive ones being less opinionated, they almost cancel each other out. For CTV News, however, articles are evenly opinionated, but there are 5 times as many negative articles than positive ones, and the average polarization of the sources becomes strongly negative. If you recall that CBC covers more domestic news and CTV covers more of the outside world, this can indicate that Canadians are much fonder of his domestic affairs than of the outside world, and honestly, how can I blame them? This was Nikita Grebnev, signing off for the assignment 3 of Group 4 for the Social Data Mining Techniques course.